Childress Racing just signed a YouTuber to race one of their cars. And not a fringe content creator with a couple 100,000 followers. We're talking about a guy with more than 4.6 million subscribers, his own racetrack in Florida, and a fan base that makes most NASCAR teams jealous. Cleetus McFarland is going NASCAR. And when you hear the full details of how this deal came together, the car number, the sponsor, the salary, and what racetrack he's going to tackle first, you'll understand why this is one of the most unusual and genuinely interesting stories to come out of stock car racing in years. The announcement dropped officially on March 4th of 2026, and it hit the NASCAR world like a jackstand to the shin. Childress Racing, the organization that won 6 Cup Series championships with Dale Earnhardt, the same team that took a chance on Kevin Harvick in 2001 when nobody else would, has signed Cleetus McFarland to a 2-year deal in the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. The contract covers the 2026 and 2027 seasons. The car number is the number 33 Chevrolet. The primary sponsor is Tommy's Express Car Wash for the full duration of the deal. And the first race? Rockingham Speedway, April 2026. Now, before anyone assumes this is a Cup Series story, it is not. This is the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, a developmental ladder series. And this is a part-time deal. 3 races per season in each of the 2 years, so 6 races total across the contract. That's the structure, but the significance of this deal goes way beyond race count. Childress Racing doesn't hand out uniform numbers and Chevrolet sheet metal to content creators for publicity stunts. They build race car drivers. And the fact that they want Cleetus McFarland behind the wheel alongside Jesse Love, a defending series champion, and Austin Hill tells you everything about how seriously they're taking this. Cleetus McFarland's real name is Garrett Mitchell. He runs a YouTube channel with more than 4.6 million subscribers, built around drag racing, automotive builds, and the kind of unfiltered car culture content that mainstream media can't replicate because it doesn't know how. He owns the Freedom Factory, a racetrack in Florida that has become a legitimate motorsports destination. He is not a hobbyist playing at racing. He is a drag racer who has been systematically working his way into oval competition, one series at a time, with a seriousness of purpose that the results back up. And what makes this story hit differently is the salary. According to Cleetus himself, disclosed in his own YouTube video announcing the deal, his compensation from Childress Racing is $1 per season. $1 for a 2-year contract with one of the most storied organizations in NASCAR history. He's not being paid to drive. He's paying, through his own platform, his own sponsorship relationships, and his own credibility, for the opportunity to become a better racing driver. And that distinction matters enormously. But that's only half the story. To understand why Childress Racing is doing this, and why this deal makes more sense than it might look on the surface, you have to understand what Cleetus has actually done on a racetrack over the last 2 years. Because the race results tell a story that's more complicated than his YouTube highlight reel. His ARCA Menard Series journey began at the place where careers go to get complicated, Daytona International Speedway. His debut in 2025 ended early, a crash that sent him home before most of the field had really gotten going. But he came back. Over the course of the 2025 season, he made 4 ARCA starts. He got a top 10 finish at Talladega Superspeedway. He got a career-best 9th place finish at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Those are not participation trophies. A 9th place finish in the ARCA series against a field that includes legitimate development prospects is a real result. Then in February of 2026, right at the start of the current season, he made his NASCAR Truck Series debut. Nice Motorsports, the number 4 Chevrolet, Daytona International Speedway. He started 12th. Lap 6, he lost control exiting turn 4 and crashed out, finishing 37th out of 37 trucks. Last place. Dead last. The same week, he also ran an ARCA race at Daytona and finished 11th. So in the span of 1 week at Daytona, Cleetus McFarland ran 2 NASCAR-sanctioned events, crashed out of one in the first 6 laps, and finished 11th in the other. That is not the profile of a driver who's figured it all out. That is the profile of a driver who is in the middle of learning, which is exactly why Childress Racing says they called him. According to Cleetus's own words in his announcement video, the team reached out and told him directly, "We want to make you a better driver. Not, we want your YouTube audience. Not, we want the sponsorship money. We want to make you better. That framing matters. And then came the part nobody saw coming. Kevin Harvick found out about this deal on his own broadcast, on The Speed, with Harvick and Buxton Show, the Fox Sports program that Harvick appears on as an analyst. Harvick's reaction to the Cleetus McFarland signing was genuine surprise. The man who won the 2001 Busch Series championship in his Rookie Cup season at Richard Childress Racing, who knows better than almost anyone what RCR means and what they demand of their drivers. Kevin Harvick did not see this coming. That reaction alone tells you this wasn't a slow-burn, industry-wide rumor that everyone in the paddock had been whispering about for months. This broke fast, and it broke big. The announcement came through multiple channels simultaneously. Cleetus posted on Instagram. He put up a YouTube video explaining the deal. RCR made an official team announcement, and the media coverage that followed, USA Today, Motorsports Wire, Yahoo Sports, Sports Illustrated, Motorsport.com, On3, confirmed every major detail within hours. When you get that kind of coordinated, simultaneous rollout from a driver and a NASCAR team, you're not looking at a casual arrangement. You're looking at something that has been structured carefully on both sides. The key to understanding the tactical logic here is the Rockingham Speedway debut. Jeff Gluck of The Athletic confirmed that McFarland's first race in the number 33 RCR Chevrolet is scheduled for Rockingham Speedway in April of 2026. And if you know Rockingham, a 0.94-mile oval with progressive banking and a surface that punishes drivers who aren't precise with their line, you understand immediately why this is a significant choice for a first race. This is not a flat, high-speed superspeedway where drafting covers up mistakes. This is a track that demands technical skill, patience, and oval racing fundamentals that take time to develop. Running Rockingham first is not a soft landing. It is a developmental challenge designed to build the kind of skills that eventually translate to the bigger venues. Because the bigger venues are on the table. Following the Rockingham debut, and pending NASCAR approval after that race, Richard Childress Racing and Cleetus McFarland are looking at potential appearances at Daytona International Speedway and Talladega Superspeedway in the O'Reilly Series. Those are the tracks where Cleetus already has ARCA experience. Those are the tracks where his name draws attention and his performance has shown flashes of real competitiveness. But the team and NASCAR will evaluate his Rockingham result before greenlighting anything at the superspeedways. That progression, short oval first, superspeedway potential second, is a structured development path, not a YouTube stunt. The breakdown of the sponsorship side of this deal is equally interesting. Tommy's Express Car Wash, a family-owned, multi-generational, vertically integrated car wash operation, is the primary sponsor for the full 2-year contract. Alex Lemon, the CEO of Tommy's Express, described the partnership in terms that go well beyond traditional NASCAR sponsorship language. He called Cleetus a genius marketer with an authentic connection to millions of fans. And Cleetus himself described Tommy's Express as a fast-forward brand that understands speed, performance, and connecting with people. Both sides called the combination of Cleetus, Tommy's Express, and Richard Childress Racing a dream team. That's not the language of a sponsor who is in for a few races and hoping for some logo placements. That's the language of a brand that has made a calculated bet on a specific audience, the more than 4.6 million people who follow Cleetus McFarland because they trust him, and who will notice when he tells them he's driving a Chevrolet for Richard Childress Racing, sponsored by Tommy's Express Car Wash. The marketing math here is actually straightforward once you lay it out. Cleetus's YouTube audience generates the kind of authentic engagement that traditional NASCAR sponsorship packages simply cannot replicate. When a mainstream sponsor buys a paint scheme on a cup car, they're paying for broadcast impressions and track signage. When Tommy's Express backs Cleetus McFarland's RCR entry, they're getting direct access to an audience that has already proven it will follow Cleetus onto a racetrack and root for him. That's a different product. And NASCAR, which has spent years trying to grow its younger and broader audience, has every reason to want this story to succeed. But the real fallout didn't happen on the track. The reaction inside the NASCAR community was immediate and mixed in the most interesting way. This wasn't the kind of controversy where people are angry. It was the kind of reaction where even the skeptics couldn't completely dismiss it, because the structure of the deal is too thoughtful to wave off. The RCR connection is too credible. The racing resume, while brief, is genuine. And the $1 salary disclosure flipped the narrative from YouTube star buys his way into NASCAR to something more nuanced. A driver using his own platform and commercial relationships to fund a legitimate development program at one of NASCAR's most historic organizations. Richard Childress himself is directly connected to this announcement. Mike Verlander and Danny Lawrence, both referenced in Cleetus's official driver quotes, are also part of the team leadership structure involved in this deal. When Cleetus said publicly that the team called him and told him they wanted to develop him as a driver, he named those individuals. That's not a business transaction handled at arm's length. That's direct engagement from team leadership. Richard Childress Racing has navigated plenty of development driver situations over the decades. They know the difference between a marketing arrangement and a development commitment. And they are framing this one as development. The RCR O'Reilly Series operation is not a backmarker program propped up by sponsor money. Going into 2026, Richard Childress Racing is fielding the defending series champion in Jesse Love and one of the series' top contenders in Austin Hill. These are legitimate championship caliber entries. The number 33 Chevrolet for Cleetus McFarland slots into that lineup as a part-time development entry, which means when he's on the track, he's running with cars and crews that operate at the highest level the O'Reilly Series offers. That's not an accident. That is precisely the environment you'd design if your actual goal was to make a driver better. And when you look at the broader context of what Richard Childress Racing is doing across its full operations in 2026, you'll see why this changes everything for how NASCAR thinks about content creators and crossover talent. On the Cup Series side, Kyle Busch in the number 8 Chevrolet has been carrying the RCR banner. Austin Dillon continues in the number 3. The organization has shown, across its history, a willingness to take on high-profile and non-traditional entrants. Shane Van Gisbergen's move into NASCAR from the Australian Supercars Championship being one recent example of how the sport has opened its doors to talent from outside the traditional development pipeline. Van Gisbergen came from Supercar. Cleetus comes from YouTube and drag strips. The common thread is that NASCAR is no longer limiting itself to one kind of origin story. The broader precedent question is genuinely important. There is no prior well-documented case of a major NASCAR team signing a YouTube creator and structuring a multi-year development contract with this level of organizational commitment. The McFarland signing opens a door, one that connects NASCAR's future to the massive, passionate, automotive-obsessed digital audience that Cleetus McFarland has spent years building. If this works, if Cleetus runs competitively at Rockingham, earns NASCAR's approval for super speedway entries, and shows real development across 6 races over 2 years, the story does not end in 2027. It accelerates. That sets up what could be the most consequential few months in Cleetus McFarland's racing career. The first race is everything. Rockingham Speedway in April 2026 is where this deal either starts to justify itself on track or exposes the gap between YouTube speed and NASCAR speed. Rockingham is described by people who've raced it as one of the trickier ovals in the series. Narrow grooves, variable grip, no room for the kind of wide entries that super speedways allow. If Cleetus goes to Rockingham and puts the number 33 RCR Chevrolet in a respectable finishing position inside the top 15, competitive in traffic, the conversation about Daytona and Talladega gets serious very quickly. If he struggles, that conversation gets pushed back, and the critics who said this is a marketing exercise will have ammunition. Beyond Rockingham, watch the NASCAR approval process for the super speedway bids. Both Daytona and Talladega in the O'Reilly Series are explicitly contingent on NASCAR evaluating his Rockingham debut. That's a performance gate, and it's one the team, the sponsor, and the driver all know is there. Watch Cleetus' own content around this, because his YouTube channel is now a real-time documentation of a NASCAR development program. More than 4.6 million people are going to watch him prep for Rockingham, struggle with the technical adjustments, work with RCR's engineers and coaches, and either show up ready or not. That transparency is something no traditional NASCAR development story has ever had, and it creates accountability in both directions, for him and for the team. And keep an eye on the 2027 picture. If the 2026 portion of this deal produces real results, the second year of the contract could look very different. The superspeedways are the target. Daytona 500 eligibility in a NASCAR series is the kind of storyline that writes itself. And Richard Childress Racing has shown, over 50-plus years in this sport, that when they commit to developing a driver, they are serious about it. The green flag at Rockingham hasn't dropped yet. And what happens when it does will determine whether this is the beginning of something genuinely new for NASCAR or just the sport's most interesting experiment of the year.